You owe a man £5, but you can't pay, so the law steps in and throws you into debtor's prison, and here's the craziest part, charges you rent to stay there. Welcome to Victorian England, where being in debt was a crime. Debtors' prisons weren't new when Queen Victoria took the throne in 1837, they'd been grinding people up for centuries. But under the Victorians, the system reached a kind of perfection, a perfectly designed machine for making sure poor people stayed poor and locked up. Here's how it worked. A creditor, a landlord, a shopkeeper, a moneylender, could have you arrested for an unpaid debt, and it didn't matter how small the debt was. Men went to prison over sums that wouldn't buy you a decent lunch. This also applied to single separated women, widows, spinsters, all were fair game. Once inside, you were expected to pay for your own imprisonment, including your cell, your food, your bedding, basically everything. If your family had money, they could bring you supplies, but if they didn't, and they usually didn't, you went without. The prison keepers weren't running a public service, they were running a business, and their customers had nowhere else to go. The most famous of these places was the Marshalsea in Southwark. Charles Dickens knew it personally, as his father was locked up there in 1824, when Charles was just 12 years old. The boy had to leave school and go work in a boot-blacking factory. He never forgot or forgave it. You can feel the Marshalsea in almost everything Dickens ever wrote. The Marshalsea was just one of dozens of debtor prisons all over England, packed with people whose only crime was owing money they couldn't pay back. Inside, the conditions ranged from grim to lethal. Overcrowding was standard, sanitation was an afterthought, disease swept through those places like wildfire, typhus, cholera, dysentery and more, and not to mention the violence and being continually robbed of your money and food by gangs. All of this on top of the anxiety that the longer you were inside, the more you owed to the prison. It was a vicious circle. Your only way out was if someone paid your debt for you, or in rare cases your creditor gave up on getting paid and had you released. You could also petition to be declared insolvent, but it was complicated, took ages and a lot of paperwork, and was rarely used or even known about by your average debtor. The Debtors Act of 1869 effectively ended imprisonment for most civil debts, but by then, Dickens had spent 40 years screaming about it in print. By then even polite Victorian society had started to find the whole thing a little bit embarrassing. But let's not applaud too loudly. The reforms came slowly, reluctantly, and only after generations of people had been chewed up by a machine that profited from their misery. Should the prisoner somehow come into any money, then his creditors got paid first. They always did. The debtors got a grave, or a broken life, or if they were very lucky, eventually, a walk out of a gate into a world set up for them to fail. Victorian England built railways, lit streets with gas, sent ships to every corner of the earth, and all the while, it was locking people up for owing a few pounds, and charging them for the privilege.